that lighting now must conform to the dark sky ordinance, or, I'm not saying that correctly. Charlie, can you, we use what standard? We use the international?
Mr. Mayor, can I respond to that?
Yes.
International Dark Sky Association.
Okay. So many of these things are already into practice. I'm not sure they need to go by ordinance. But if council wants to talk about them, that's fine. We already do them with our lighting plans. We already do them with our landscaping plans. So perhaps we need to whittle this pile down, and maybe some of the older ones are just going to have to be retired. That's my thought process on this thing. We don't need, next year, 19 on the list. We maybe need 11. We just need to bring it down. I am very concerned about the sewer and water. I do the same thing Judy Hatch does. I show my tenants what I have to pay. We split it up and divide it, and they pay their fair share. They don't complain. So, but if there's landlords out there who are not as attentive as myself and Judy Hatch, perhaps you do need to bring some legislation forward that protects the interest, especially in these high-density mobile home parks, where this seems to be a problem, and possibly in some apartment complexes.
Thank you very much.
Eric Crane. I'm in agreement with Ms. Pruden. I think you have too many ordinances in contemplation, and I think we have some good thoughts about wanting to make the world a better place, but these ordinances seem to serve as a distraction to the core business of the city. I would encourage council to direct staff to remove the tree ordinance, lighting ordinance, shopping cart ordinance, historic preservation, animal regulation, state model, oh, I'm sorry, that one's needed. Sign regulation and hillside regulation. That would leave us a state model water efficiency landscape ordinance, which is, I believe, a state requirement. Code enforcement, which is really the crux of most of our problems, is not enforcing the rules we already have, not for lack of good rules already. And the airport self-fueling regulation. The rest of these really need to wait until we have a staff that has the time to get done the core business of the city and these extras. I mean, it's sort of simple, but until you're done with your vegetables, you can't have dessert. These are dessert, a lot of them. We don't need them. We need to make sure we have water. We need to make sure we have sewer that stays in the pipe and water that stays out of that pipe. We need to have those core things handled efficiently. We had an item earlier this evening about force account. There's going to be some massive exposure there. We're spending all this time on ordinances, and it's coming out of a budget that's finite. And a lot of things are slipping through the cracks. So it seems that if you have limited resources, you're not hitting the A-list items, you need to be dropping some of your B-list items, and these are B-list items. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So if speakers are running off the page here. My name's Annie Esposito, and I would just hate to contradict Judy Pruden, but I think that just because the city hasn't dealt with something for 15 years doesn't mean that you can just toss it for that reason. And I'd like to point out that the Friends of Gibson Creek have met with the city manager and have offered to go there halfway with putting together a committee to relieve some of the stress on the department over having to have a commission. So please don't just say, well, we didn't do it for 15 years after we passed it, so we don't have to do it. That's really not the right way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Bruni Kabhi. Just a quick comment. I don't think trees are dessert. I think they are very serious investment, and I do hope that the city will take care of its investment. I think so far it hasn't taken good care of its investment. And yes, there are some code on the books for street trees which are not followed. So one major issue seems to be the enforcement of what is on the books. And all we are asking for is that a commission be formed and help the city pull all that information together and advise the city how better to enforce what is already on the books, and suggest some good programs that could be educational for the general public, such as a voluntary landmark designation. Those are the things we're asking for. We have not uttered the O word, which seems to freak out everybody. There's already a lot of code on the books. All we're asking for is, let's see and give us the opportunity to show you how to enforce it and how make the management plan that's on the books, make it better. Thank you.
Councilmember Thomas may
I
have a question.
What's the distinction between a commission and an ad hoc committee that would deal with this and make recommendations?
The commission, I understand, is a very formal process that requires some staff time, and it has to follow certain rules. I think the Brown rules, I guess they're called. So it's more formal. An ad hoc committee could be just for the purpose of briefly getting together on a specific topic, say, okay, we'll look at it and see what is lacking in enforcement. But other communities have done the tree commission, and I think it has benefited those communities very well. I think it's a long-term approach to solving some of the problems we have in this city with our tree care.
John Graff speaking as a citizen, and I would like it in the minutes that that I agree with Judy Pruden. I think that her comments are more right on. I want to go on by saying that I love trees. I love creeks. I love animals, and I don't like bright lights. But I think in lieu of the economic state that we're in, I don't know how many council members are aware of the cut list from the state today on the projects in Ukiah, how much money they're taking back, but there is a list out that'll show that they are bringing money back. And one of the projects is the Gobi Street Park project is on the list. And I think in light of the revenue shortfalls that the city's having and the fact that the Planning Department has alluded to the fact that they have too much on their plate, I would recommend that you first come out with a system to prioritize what really is important that needs to be done today and start from there, that the city council and the staff prepare a list of what needs to be done. I would recommend that list start with things that either increase revenue or cut cost as being the first things of the ordinances, the first ordinances to be produced. But I think you have a problem with the agenda tonight and the fact that you're asking for people to come up and lobby for their projects and also come up and talk about prioritizing. And I think the prioritizing should have been done